Breaking news tonight, Springfield Police Chief Robert Williams will retire and Corporation Counsel Mark Cullen will resign. Reaction from the two city aldermen coming up straight ahead. The man convicted of killing 5 members of a Beeson family learns his fate today. Find out how much time he will spend in prison. And a community mourns after 2 people are killed in an accident this week. Coming up, find out how they are remembering the victims. First News at 5 starts now. Good evening, everyone. We continue our coverage of breaking news tonight. A half hour ago, Mayor Mike Houston called a last-minute Friday press conference to announce changes in the top leadership of the police department and the city attorney's office. The mayor announced Police Chief Robert Williams will retire and Corporation Counsel Mark Cullen will resign. News Channel 20's Katie Hines live at City Hall. She was there for the press conference. She has much more on today's late developments. Katie.
Vince, neither Police Chief Robert Williams nor Corporation Counsel Mark Cullen were at the late afternoon press conference today. The mayor was joined by his executive assistant and 2 top members of the Springfield Police Department. What he tells us tonight is that Chief Robert Williams' retirement will take effect on October 22nd, but after 27 years with the department, he has significant time saved up and will likely be off the job before then. He tells us Mark Cullen notified him, that is the Corporation Counsel, that he will resign as soon as he returns from vacation. He is apparently out of the country right now, but we don't have a time frame yet on when that might be effective. In his remarks, Mayor Houston said that Mark Cullen has, quote, served the city well during different periods of time, most recently as the city's top lawyer for the last 2 years. Now, neither were at this press conference, but the mayor explains that it was time to focus on the duties here at City Hall.
The real decision comes down to is being a distraction in terms of what is going on in city government, and that there needs to be a focus on terms of what we are doing, and if he is serving as a distraction, he felt it would be better to simply eliminate himself from the position.
Mayor Houston says he will figure out a transition plan to transfer responsibilities over here at City Hall on an orderly basis. What we do know tonight is both Springfield's police chief and Corporation Counsel will leave their jobs. Reporting live outside of the Municipal Center, Katie Hines, ABC News Channel 20.
Katie, thank you very much. Let's bring in now Alderman Frank Edwards and Alderman Joe McMenamin. You've watched this unfold as we've reported it beginning Monday night and then Tuesday night and last night as well. Your reaction to what's just taken place with the mayor?
Well, I think it's a sad day, Vince. I think when you watch the demise of people, that's not fun. But I think this is just the start. I think that we need to know who all the players were, the level of activity that they participated in, and we need to move on from there. These guys resigned. Management took action, accepted their resignations, but where else does it go? We've had people mentioned in emails, in your report, that are still there.
You're referring to Assistant City Attorney Jeanette Wittendorf, who oversaw the MOU changing the destruction clause in the police union contract from 5 years to 4 years.
Yeah.
That's who you're referring to?
Yeah, and who wrote the MOU, who helped Bobby Williams make decisions on that MOU?
Well, we know from Tuesday night's report, Alderman McMenamin, that Lieutenant Chris Mueller, the head of internal affairs, through emails that he wrote, he raised repeated objections in the days prior to the shredding to both Chief Williams and to Assistant City Jeanette Wittendorf, City Attorney Jeanette Wittendorf, not to do this because Deputy Chief Cliff Buscher's file, one of those that was destroyed on April 25th, was the subject of a valid Freedom of Information Act request. Your thoughts on just taking us from the timeline from when that happened, what you knew, what you didn't know, and what's taken place today?
Well, there's so much that's happened this week and on top of the last 10 weeks. And this is a difficult day, but these were necessary steps that needed to be taken to go forward. There's been a serious breakdown of trust and confidence. It's taken place over time. over the short term, medium term, and even long term, and it's going to take equivalent periods of time to rebuild that trust and confidence. I think many in Springfield are watching the news, and more so than normal, and there's a great deal of upset out there and almost disbelief, but these are steps today that we're just now taking that will begin the process to move us forward again.
Frank, I asked you earlier when we were doing our breaking news cut-in at 4:30, how do you address your constituents who may voice concern that because of what's taking place and what will continue, we expect to take place, there's a distrust?
There is a distrust. I think when you look at the police officers out on the street, it makes their job a lot tougher. 95% of those people are just wanting to do their jobs, and they do it well. The problem comes in is we always hear you can't trust City Hall. Now it was just proven you can't trust City Hall. So like Joe said, this is going to take a long time to heal, but we need to get through this process, and I think this is just the beginning.
Joe, next Tuesday's council meeting is not going to be in session. That was planned before this happened. The following Tuesday, a week from this coming Tuesday, you will have session. What do you expect to take place? Will you ask for a special session beforehand, or will you wait for the next regularly scheduled council meeting to take place? And if so, what do you expect will be discussed there?
Several aldermen, including Alderman Edwards, think a special session, special meeting is needed.
Does this hasten that?
Well, I think there'll be a lot of scheduling conflicts next week, so I don't think it'll take place the middle of next week. We'll have to see. We need as many aldermen there as possible. We need a good long session, I think behind closed doors. Let everyone talk candidly, freely, with the mayor present. I think the mayor needs some solid guidance. I hope the mayor will listen and take it all under advisement.
I'm assuming that you're going to have a lot of questions if you go into executive session.
Well,
what are you going to ask?
That's kind of where Joe and I disagree. We're trying to build trust. The last thing you need to do is have a bunch of people go behind closed doors.
So you'd rather have it public forum?
I'd rather just have it public forum and let the people hear what we have to say.
And regardless of whether you go behind closed doors, you have the public forum, what questions do you want answered, you need answered?
Well, I think that one of the things that really bothers me is when we sat in executive session, and I told you the question that was asked before, but the mayor sat there in that executive session with us and didn't come forth and tell us that he had met with IA, and IA didn't
You're
like...
You're referring to an executive session following the
May
destruction.
7th.
May 7th. So we know from my report that on May 6th, Lieutenant Mueller, who put out all these emails to the chief and the assistant city attorney, sent out emails on May 5th memorializing everything he'd done, and he'd copied Mayor Houston. On May 6th, he has the meeting with Houston in his office. We don't know we know that it was discussed. I don't know exactly what was discussed. So you're saying past that, there's another council meeting, and you're disturbed because the mayor hadn't brought anything up.
Right. We all went into executive session. You think you're going to be candid in those executive sessions. I felt we were misled. And when the mayor sits there and doesn't tell us and be frank and say, and IA had some concerns, because I think one of the things that came out of that meeting was, you're going to tell us that nobody raised the question and said we shouldn't do this? And that's why I think I want the tapes released, so people can get, well, they were trying to ask the questions. They weren't getting very far, but they were asking them.
Gentlemen, I thank you for your time. I know this has been fast moving, and it continues to move at a fast pace in what's taking place here. We appreciate your time. Of course, we'll have much more coming up on what's taking place here at City Hall. Mayor Houston announcing the the retirement of Chief Robert Williams and the resignation of his chief city attorney, Mark Cullen. We'll have much more for you coming up tonight at 6 o'clock.
Major changes tonight at Springfield City Hall. We'll tell you what top 2 city officials are leaving their jobs.
The man convicted of killing a Logan County family back in court today for sentencing. Why it may not be the last time he appears before a judge.
New developments in the ongoing efforts to bring a new outlet mall to Springfield, how close crews are to breaking ground on the project.
And some storms will mean a slight break in the heat and humidity. I'll tell you what that means for your weekend coming up.
We're following a developing story out of City Hall. 2 top officials with the city of Springfield will be stepping down. Police Chief Robert Williams and Corporation Counsel Mark Cullen have indicated their intent to the mayor to leave their positions. ABC News Channel 20's Katie Hines joins us live outside the municipal complex with the details. Katie.
Vince, the mayor wrapped up a press conference here just about an hour ago to announce the changes at City Hall. Mayor Michael Houston tells us Police Chief Robert Williams called him today to submit the paperwork to retire. Williams indicated he will take his retirement on October 22nd. After almost 27 years of service, we're told he has enough time accumulated to cover the next 3 months. The mayor tells us Corporation Counsel Mark Cullen offered his resignation. He says Cullen plans to step down when he returns from a vacation out of the country. It's unclear who will take over either position. The mayor says he'll work with Williams to determine a timetable for a transition, and he'll name an interim police chief to serve. The mayor confirms Deputy Police Chief Cliff Busher isn't interested in that job.
The chief and I had never had a discussion with regards to his retirement. But I also know that his time would be October 22nd, just based on looking at a calendar. And I would make the assumption that he was looking at that particular date.
Houston says Corporation Counsel Mark Cullen felt if he was serving as a distraction from the business at City Hall, he should eliminate himself from the role. Houston says Cullen served the city well during a difficult period of time. As for the shredding of police internal affairs documents, the mayor says he should have been informed of a change in the police union contract to allow the immediate destruction of the records before any agreement was made. Reporting live outside the municipal complex, Katie Hines, ABC News Channel 20.
Misled, distrust. That's how some Springfield aldermen describe the relationship between the Houston administration and the city council. Some are going as far as saying what happened with the police document shredding is having a direct impact on the Springfield Police Department's ability to do its job. Alderman Joe McMenamin and Alderman Frank Edwards stopped by our studios and appeared live on First News at 5. Here's what they had to say.
And this is a difficult day, but these were necessary steps that needed to be taken to go forward. There's been a serious breakdown of trust and confidence. It's taken place over time, over the short term, medium term, and even long term, and it's going to take equivalent periods of time to rebuild that trust and confidence. I think many in Springfield are watching the news, and more so than normal, and there's a great deal of upset out there and almost disbelief, but these are steps today that we're just now taking that will begin the process to move us forward again.
There is a distrust. I think when you look at the police officers out on the street, it makes their job a lot tougher. 95% of those people are just wanting to do their jobs, and they do it well. The problem comes in is we always hear you can't trust City Hall. Now it was just proven you can't.
If you want to check out any of the documentation that we've uncovered as part of our Ready, Set, Shred investigation, or see the stories you may have missed, head to our website, WICS.com. Our 8-week investigation concludes tonight on Nightside with a look at how many other police departments have shredding policies similar to the Springfield Police Department. The answer may surprise you.
This is ABC News Channel 20, Nightside.
Good evening, everyone. 4 days after the first installment of our special investigation, Ready, Set, Shred airs, there's a shakeup at City Hall. This is the public learns about who knew what and when Springfield Police Internal Affairs documents were destroyed. Late this afternoon, Mayor Mike Houston announced 2 key leadership positions within his administration will be leaving. Our team coverage begins tonight with ABC News Channel 20's Katie Hines.
Mayor Michael Houston confirms both Police Chief Robert Williams and Corporation Counsel Mark Cullen will leave their positions with the city.
Chief Robert Williams called me today and said he plans to take his retirement on October 22nd.
The city's top lawyer offered his resignation to the mayor. He says he'll step down when he returns from a vacation out of the country. It's unclear who will take over either role or when. Mayor Houston says he'll work with Williams to determine a mutually agreeable timetable for the transition.
He has accumulated time that will cover the period between now and October 22nd.
In the meantime, Houston will name an interim police chief to serve. He confirms Deputy Chief Cliff Busher isn't interested in the job. He also adds Cullen served the city well during a difficult period of time.
If he is serving as a distraction, he felt it would be better to simply eliminate himself from the position.
As for the shredding of police internal affairs documents, the mayor says he should have been informed of a change in the police union contract to allow the immediate destruction of the records before any agreement was made. Reporting in Springfield, Katie Hines, ABC News Channel 20.
Some at City Hall say there's a distrust growing in city government. There's a growing call for the release of executive session tapes where Alderman Frank Edwards claims that the mayor denied talking to Internal Affairs prior to the destruction of those IA records. And even some suggesting the distrust will have an impact on the Springfield Police Department's ability to do its job. In light of today's developments, Springfield City aldermen say they have a laundry list of questions for Mayor Houston. Listen.
Several aldermen, including Alderman Edwards, think a special session, special meeting is needed.
Does this hasten that?
Well, I think there'll be a lot of scheduling conflicts next week, so I don't think it'll take place the middle of next week. We'll have to see. We need as many aldermen there as possible. We need a good long session, I think behind closed doors. Let everyone talk candidly, freely, with the mayor present. I think the mayor needs some solid guidance. I hope the mayor will listen and take it all under advisement.
We all went into executive session. You think you're going to be candid in those executive sessions. I felt we were misled. And when the mayor sits there and doesn't tell us and be frank and say, and I had some concerns, because I think one of the things that came out of that meeting was, you're going to tell us that nobody raised the question and said we shouldn't do this. And that's why I think I want the tapes released, so people can get, well, they were trying to ask the questions. They weren't getting very far, but they were asking them.
We've also heard from other aldermen. Sam Canman says Police Chief Robert Williams and Corporation Counsel Mark Cullen did the right thing today by accepting responsibility. I'm confident we can find a good new police chief from within the ranks and a good new city attorney from the ranks of local lawyers and work together to get our city back on the course of moving in the right direction. And Doris Turner says the resignation of Mark Cullen and the retirement of Chief Williams notwithstanding, there are still a lot of unanswered questions for which aldermen have been seeking answers. Mayor Houston must have a very open, honest, and frank discussion with aldermen regarding this entire issue. Aldermen should not have learned the details of this through a news outlet. We asked the questions, but we were not given honest answers. The details uncovered in our investigation, Ready, Set, Shred, have been the talk of the town. From talk radio and the newspaper to social media, everyone seems to have an opinion. And the culmination of today's announcement from Mayor Houston may only be the tip of the iceberg. ABC News Channel 20, Chantel Middleton has more on the talk of the town. Chantel?
Vince, we hit the street shortly after Mayor Mike Houston announced City Attorney Mark Cullen turned in his resignation and Police Chief Robert Williams will retire. We wanted to know what you thought of the shakeup at City Hall. Here's what we found.
After everything that's happened, I'm surprised it hasn't happened sooner. So now we'll just have to see who is next in line, and if it's somebody that should not be, then they need to be stepping down also.
I believe that Rob Williams, as police chief, did his job as always as to the best of his ability and has done a great job as police chief since he was appointed. I don't believe he's done anything wrong, and I think he's done an exemplary job in Springfield as police chief.
I think it's ridiculous, to be honest. It's kind of like walking away in the middle of a gunfight to me, personally. I mean, it's like, you know, all this stuff is going down. This would be the worst time to leave. It just shows, to me, it kind of is like putting the guiltiness there, even if it's not.
When the East Side spoke, he listened, and we respect him for that. Now, who's going to be the next chief? Are we going to look for another minority chief, or are we going to go with someone that's in the department that's been there for 20 years?
And we want to hear from you. You can join the conversation by going to our Facebook page and leaving your comments on the matter. And if you want to check out any of the documentation we've uncovered as part of Ready, Set, Shred, or see any stories you might have missed, head to our website, wics.com. Vince.
Thank you, Chantel. Tonight, the final part of our 8-week-long investigation. Over the past few nights, we've shown you what was in Deputy Chief Bush's internal files, emails from the head of Internal Affairs who repeatedly warned the chief of police and an assistant city attorney against destroying those records under that FOIA request. And we've walked you through the process listed in the Local Records Act that the police department did not take before destroying those records. Tonight, we look at the clause in the police union contract allowing for the destruction of some internal affairs files and officers' disciplinary files. Is it a good idea? Why is it there? Do any police departments in Illinois, even the nation, engage in the same policy? In our previous story, we introduced you to this man, David Jones. He's the head of the Illinois State Archives. His department oversees the procedures that cities like Springfield must follow before destroying official documents like internal affairs files. It's all spelled out in a series of state laws contained in the Local Records Act. Jones told us that the city did not file the proper paperwork before the documents were destroyed. And Jones says even if the city did follow the rules, his agency would have rejected the police department's shredding request because Deputy Chief Buscher's file was under a FOIA request. Jones says information sought in FOIA requests cannot be legally destroyed. As we told you, that recent change to the police union contract states that any record of discipline greater than a reprimand shall be expunged 4 years from the date of suspension. The original contract called for 5 years. We spoke to Springfield Alderman Frank Edwards about this. The 10 members of City Council signed off on the original contract containing the 5-year destruction clause. But the mayor and the City Council did not approve the police union contract change, lowering the destruction time from 5 years to 4. How do you build a record of progressive discipline on an officer if every 5 years his records or her records don't exist?
That's a great question.
How do you weed out bad cops?
You don't.
Alderman Edwards says he was unaware of the 5-year destruction contract clause when he agreed to the original union contract. The current police contract expires in February of 2015. Edwards says he will not support the continuation of any destruction clause in future police contracts. So we wondered if any other police departments destroyed both their internal affairs records and the corresponding disciplinary files of its officers. We called 6 police departments around the state to see. Here's what we found. Police departments in Peoria, Champaign, Normal, Decatur, and the Sangamon County Sheriff's Department keep some record of disciplinary action, whether it be the internal affairs file or the disciplinary file in an officer's personnel jacket. Some of these police departments do not destroy any disciplinary records. Of the half-dozen police departments we contacted, the only other police department that does exactly what the SPD does, destroying both the internal affairs records and officers' disciplinary files in a given time frame, is the Chicago Police Department. We then expanded our search to the entire country. As you can see here, we contacted 1 police department in all 50 states and in Washington, D.C. As we move along here, as you see in green, just 8 police departments destroy all disciplinary files, both internal affairs files and officers' disciplinary records in any given time frame. As we move along here in red, just 45 police departments, they do not destroy both internal affairs files and officers' disciplinary files. In fact, all 45 departments keep some record of disciplinary action against its officers. Here's Dr. Sam Walker, an author and nationally renowned criminologist who believes that the police union contract clause in the Springfield Police Department calling for the destruction of both internal affairs files and officers' disciplinary files every 4 years is not a good policy.
It's a terrible policy. It's absolutely terrible because you want to know somebody's full record. The officer who in question in this case, he's like the poster child for why you want somebody's full record.
I examined Springfield police contracts dating back to 1994 and found that except for one 3-year contract period, they all contain the same 5-year expungement clause. I asked Mayor Michael Houston to explain why he thinks any destruction contract clause is good practice.
It is not a question as to whether it is good practice. It is a question that it has been a long-standing practice of the city of Springfield.
Here's Alderman Joe McMenamin.
It's extraordinarily difficult to change what's been part of the boilerplate of contracts for negotiation.
Both Alderman McMenamin and Mayor Houston say no one's ever tried to remove that long-standing clause from the police union contract, and if they did, both men feel certain that an arbitrator would rule against the city. But Springfield labor attorney John Baker, who's independent of everyone in this story, says that's not necessarily the case.
I think that the city certainly has an opportunity to negotiate that. And I think to say, well, there's no way that that clause can be removed is patently untrue.
Now, we checked the 19 other employee union contracts that the city does business with to see if the same expungement agreement that the Springfield Police Department follows exists in any of those other contracts. Some have similar policies, but only the fire department comes close to the police department's policy. They have a 3-year destruction clause in their union contract. The fire department hands over the disciplinary file to the employee and does not keep a copy, but only if the employee requests it in writing. A correction to tell you about now about a mistake I made in last night's story. It was brought to my attention by a viewer, Jeff Bray. In last night's story, which focused on the police department shredding of internal affairs documents that were the subject of a Freedom of Information Act request, we told you about the tampering with public records clause in the Local Records Act concerning the improper destruction of documents. It reads, "A person who knowingly and without lawful authority alters, destroys, defaces, removes, or conceals any public record commits a Class 4 felony." Well, viewer John Bray pointed out to us that the original clause had been amended, and we checked, and John is right. The current clause in the Local Records Act concerning tampering with public records now reads, "A person commits tampering with public records when he or she knowingly, without lawful authority, and with the intent to defraud any party, public officer, or entity, alters, destroys, defaces, removes, or conceals any public records, commits a Class 4 felony." In essence, that change makes it more difficult to prove any wrongdoing. Now, we based our original information on a document we were given by the Secretary of State's office citing the original clause. The Secretary of State's office oversees the proper implementation of the Local Records Act. Again, we want to thank viewer Jeff Bray for his email concerning my discrepancy. Stay with us. We're back after the break.